Hello YouTube viewers and subscribers. I hope you're doing well during this virus thing we've got going on right now. Today I'm going to cut this piece of amethyst colored CZ, cubic zirconia. This has a hardness of around 8 to 8.5 and the refractive index is over 2, so it makes a really pretty gem. I'm going to use this diagram here, Kim's New Year's Star, and it looks like it'll be a nice design to use for this. Okay, I'm going to start by grinding a flat onto the stone to have a place to put the dop stick. And it's also better to rough up the surface so that the glue or the wax, whatever you use to dop the stone, can have a rough surface to adhere to. That's what I'm doing here. I'm using, I think this was a 260 grit lap I used for that. It just helps it adhere much better if it's rough. Okay, here I'm going to use epoxy glue to do the dopping. I've got the stone onto a target dop here I use. Got it in the jig here. Make sure it's good and tight, and I tighten it down, and I'm going to put some more glue on it just to be safe. Put it all around the dop onto the stone. Never hurts to put a lot of glue on that area right there. And this is 5-minute epoxy, but I let it dry for about 24 hours before I start to cut. You might get away with a couple hours of time, but you're not going to get away with 5 minutes and try to cut a stone. Okay, here it's dry the next day and ready to get started. We'll put the stone in the machine, tighten it down, and I'm using a new accessory for my Ultratech, and this is called a digital angle display, and I've installed this a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks, and going to show that in depth here through this video. And I believe I was setting this first facets, 43 degrees is where I set my angle at, and I'm going to adjust my stone down to touch the lap by turning the wheel here at the top of the mast. And as the stone makes contact, you'll see the angle numbers rise right there. But I've got it set right around 43.04, which is a good starting place. And I've got the 800, I've got the 600 grit lap on, and I'm going to start to cut to 43 degrees, and you can watch how the angle comes down to 43 even here eventually. And I have to lower it, of course. Well, I went back up just a hair to show you something, or to look. Actually, I was just looking. Now I'm going to go back down, lower the stone some more. You can see the angle rises 43.2, and then you're going to see it drop now as the cutting action proceeds. And I'll get right around 43.0, and then I can start checking by eye, see how my cutting action's doing. You can't rely on the digital gauge completely, but it helps out. You can kind of use it as your reference point to where you get close, and then it always relies back on your eyesight. Okay, here I've cut all of the, I guess we'll call those the main facets, and I've also cut the girdle facets here. And next we'll move on to we're going to do a 3000 grit pre-polish now using a zinc lap. I use 3000 grit diamond compound is on this. And you do have to wipe it off. I use an oil-based product called snake oil as a lubricant, and it spreads the diamond out. It's like a diamond carrier, I guess you might call it too. You have to wipe that off every time so you can see really good. Some people prefer a water-based product for their diamond compound, but I seem to like the oil, even though it is kind of messy. It gets all over your hands and you can contaminate things if you're not careful. Okay, here I've got the bat lap on and I'm polishing the girdle. Okay, I've completed the pavilion of the stone. It's been completely polished, and I've done the transfer. This is to put the stone onto a second dop stick so I can cut the top of the stone, the crown. Alright, I've taken the stone out, released the first dop, and I've started cutting the main facets here. This is with the 600 lap. This is a plated bonded steel bonded lap. Now you can see I'm cutting at 32 degrees. This is the second set of facets. Actually, I believe these would be better called the main facets, and the first set I did might be more of a break facet. And I cut, and I have to look at it and cut and look just like you would normally without the digital readout. But I find the digital readout really makes it easier to come back and find your position when you're polishing and coming back and cutting again and polishing. Okay, here I've gotten all those main facets done. Setting our angle set at 45. I'm just lowering the stone down to the lap so I can start to cut. I wanted it right around 45.05 or so as a starting point. Okay, here I've started cutting the star facets. Alright, I've pre-polished the star facets. I believe I used 8. I didn't go to 3000 pre-polish. I went straight to the 8000 on these star facets. You can take some shortcuts on the smaller facets. Sometimes you can skip some of the pre-polishing. I went straight to 8000. On the larger facets, I did a 3000 pre-polish, then I did an 8000. They were larger facets. Okay, I'm going to polish, and this is how I put the diamond compound. This would be the 60,000 grit diamond compound, and I use 1 drop of the oil, snake oil. It's kind of a dispersant, and it thins it out, the diamond compound out, and it lubricates and helps. It does reduce scratching, I've noticed. But once again, it is kind of messy to use. You have to be careful. You can contaminate everything if you don't clean your hands really well. Okay, this is final polishing with the bat lap, which is a tin lap, and 60,000 diamond is what I'm using, not 50, 60,000 diamond Girdle Pandemonium diamond compound. Okay, I finished polishing the entire crown except for the table, which is the last facet to cut, but here it's completely polished. I put my rubber splash guard back on my machine, and I'm starting to cut the table here using the 45-degree adapter. Got my angle at 45. I've got the adapter installed, and I'm cutting actually with a plated 3000 grit lap. It's a topper lap, but it does pretty good on some of these small tables. In CZ, even though it's 8 to 8.5 in hardness, it's kind of a brittle stone, and it cuts easy. Okay, here I've completed the table, and here's the finished stone. It turned out pretty well. I was hoping it'd be a little bit lighter because it's kind of dark if you're not in bright light. But you know, you never know exactly how they're going to turn out until they're done. And outside it's quite a bit brighter and a lighter colored stone, of course, in the bright sunlight. And you'll see that coming up here. Here it is. I've taken it outside, and it looks like a different stone out here because it's in the brightness of the outside sunlight areas. And this is a final shot of the gemstone.